Well, hello. Welcome back, Bonnet Heads. I am Pamela Bob, creator and star of Living on a Prairie. Yes, Living on a Prairie. You can find it on YouTube or livingonaprairietv.com. Because I'm getting comments every week saying, who's Pamela? What has she done? There we go. That's me. Here we go. And I'll keep saying it. Dean told me to say it. I'm going to say it.
Yes.
I am here with none other than our wonderful and lovable, might I add, Prairie bitch, Allison Arngrim. And there is no other like our Dean Butler. That's right. It's my hashtag imaginary boyfriend. Dean Butler's in the house.
Who is whistling? That's what I want to know. Who is whistling?
It's a hell of a whistle.
Or as he'd like me to say, the short-term best-selling book author, Dean Butler. Although I don't think it's going to be short-term.
Well, you just don't know. The book debuted. Prairie Man, My Little House Life and Beyond, debuted on USA Today's top 100 reads in the USA at number 79. It's cool. Yesterday, I got the word that it was number 23 on Publishers Weekly hardcover nonfiction list, which I'm very excited about.
That's big. That's hot.
pretty.
That's
is
hot.
it? Is that good?
Yes. Publishers Weekly. Yes.
So I mean, the question for you, Allison, is how do we keep this going? How does this?
Scandal.
How do you keep
What
driving
scandals
this
can you come up
forward?
Well, you do what you're doing. You drag those books around. You sell them at every venue you're at.
Like a cheap whore.
I remember, Melissa's first book was out.
And you know that from experience or what?
Well, we're not telling my story.
Yeah,
here.
gotta
We're
hawk
your
those
story.
things.
Sorry, you just laid it out there.
It was opening. You could.
I mean,
Melissa was selling her book. When she was doing the musical, and I said, "Don't you have books for sale after?" And she said, "No. What do you think? I carry them around in a little red wagon behind me." And I said, "I do. Yeah. I have a damn little wagon behind me. I got some in the trunk of the car. I'm like, I have my book. I will sell those. I could set up a card table in Ralph's parking lot and sell books.
You could set up a card table on any corner in America and sell books.
it's true.
I know you could.
I always have books. I'm off to P10 this week. I get books. I always have books for sale, and I always sell every single thing I'm at and everything I'm at. My name is Allison Arngrim, New York Times bestselling author, Confessions of Prairie Bitch. That's like my name, and that's what you do. You just and then you sell books.
Yeah.
Right. If you got a doctorate, you would not call yourself doctorate.
Right.
You have
That's
a New
true.
York Times best-selling title. You say it.
That's
before
true.
everything.
Publishers
That's
Weekly bestseller. They're going to start calling yourself that.
Can I say that now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
You've earned it.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Then I'm gonna stick with that then. So, and
God,
thank you for that. Thank you for that. Allow me to. Yes, right. So, Pamela, we're stepping into July now. I mean, it's
my
like
God.
this is.
I can't believe it. This
yeah.
year is going so fast. It's actually terrifying how quickly it's going. Although I'm having a great year. Are you guys having a good year?
Oh, I think it's been a great year.
It's exhausting. It's been awesome. I'm like dead, but it's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean 50th anniversary. You guys are. I really don't know how you're like standing straight at the moment. You're everywhere.
Well,
the book and the events and the everything. It's been insane.
Yeah, I mean we're heading to Walnut Grove.
That's right.
Next week. Actually, when this drops, we will be on our way to Walnut Grove.
Okay,
Yes.
So today we're recording, but next week when it drops, you will actually be in Walnut Grove.
We will be
Ground
en route.
zero.
Yes, exactly. We will be departing out of Burbank Airport.
How nice.
Heading for Walnut Grove.
Burbank, for people who live in LA,
Yes.
is the nice airport as opposed to having to go to LAX and deal with the crowd. So it's like, woo, Burbank, yay. So
good. Well,
going.
today we're going to be talking with a woman who has the task of wrangling the Little House cast and making sure they feel welcome.
The poor woman.
In, our Minnesota home away from home, right?
That's right.
Shall I introduce her yet? Or
Oh no, let's get into the show and then introduce her.
Oh, let's do it. We're going to get into the show. Before we talk of all things Walnut Grove, of course, from the studios of UBN Go in Burbank, California, and me in New York, this is the Little House 50th Anniversary Podcast, Walnut Grove style. And there's the music. All right. Well, because of the Little House series, Walnut Grove has become a hallowed place among Laura Ingalls Wilder's Laura Ingalls Wilder aficionados. And actually, Allison, I want you to tell the story once our guest comes on. I want you to tell the story you told me about the town of Walnut Grove and how the TV show affected it.
And the reason, of course, that's become that way is because the series pilot all those years ago started in Pepin and followed the Ingalls family to Kansas. I just want to add a little piece of trivia here that's sort of life stuff, which I have found fascinating once I realized it was the case. I went to college at University of the Pacific in Stockton, California, and started my freshman year at Pacific the week before Little House premiered on NBC. 9 months before that, the Orvis Cattle Ranch in Stockton, which is about 30 miles from Pacific's campus, played host or stood in for Kansas in the Little House on the Prairie pilot.
Oh, you're kidding.
That's right.
Yeah,
Stockton.
Yes.
Stockton was Kansas.
Yes. So it was like, as I was starting school, on September 11th, it was probably my first week, and on comes Little House on the Prairie. And just earlier that year, the company had been in Stockton shooting the pilot. It was just sort of as I look back on it, sort of a wonderful kismet precursor to things to come for me personally.
Although you didn't know.
No idea.
Fate.
Football.
Fate.
Yeah. Fate. Yeah, exactly.
It's so fate.
Yeah.
It started September 11th. That was the one, Harvest of Friends, which was the first one, which, of course, it first started the pilot. If you watch it, you go, oh, the show's going to take place in Kansas. So they're sitting around in Walnut Grove. Now, remember, this is the 70s. And like I said, the books came out in the 30s, 70s, 74, big recession. Everything's just sucking everywhere. It's like, oh, God. And they're in a small town, and they're going, okay, things are not going great. It's the 70s. And then on September 11th, the Harvest it takes place in Walnut Grove. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, wait, the series is going to take place in Walnut Grove, Minnesota, which up until then, unless you were a diehard Little House fan and read all the books, most people had never heard of.
No.
Why would you know?
No,
I had to who knew. And all of a sudden, people knew. Now, I was told, even the first time I went there, that indeed, when this happened, there were people in Walnut Grove who ran outside and screamed and that honked their horns in the middle of the street and went bananas because they only had so much tourism. Who did you have? I mean, she'll for librarians, school kids, the books, people who were into the books. Specifically, Banks of Plum Creek would come to Walnut Grove.
Right.
The average person, Leslie Redlett went, what is Walnut Grove? That's cute. They have music. Suddenly, they had nothing other than Plum Creek and Plum Creek
and the church where Pa's Bell was.
And
that's what they had. Now we'll find out for sure from our guest what else there was.
They had a thing, and if you were a librarian or you had a school fair, people went, but not like people. There were millions of people who went, "What's a Walnut Grove?" Because if they hadn't read the books, and suddenly millions of people who hadn't even read the books and went, Laura Ingalls who went, "Oh, there's something called Walnut Grove, Minnesota," and then like tour buses of people in droves suddenly descending upon this place that they hadn't heard of a few months ago. And it was kind of a little economic kaboom,
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of tour buses, the tours have begun again at Big Sky Movie Ranch, which is our pretend Walnut Grove, which is the world knows as Walnut Grove, starting on July 20th, then again on July 20th, on August 3rd, on September 14th. People can go to SimiValleyChamber.org, then look at Little House 50th anniversary, and then click on bus tours, and you can get your tickets for those events.
And all of this is in the show notes, so don't worry about forgetting it, because just look down.
It'll be on the thing.
It'll
be on the screen.
Years ago, when I first started going to Walnut Grove, and I think for me, Allison, it was like the early 2000s. I don't know about you when you first visited.
91 or 2.
Oh, well, see,
ridiculous.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
OG.
I met a wonderful woman there named Shirley Knockmoose.
Yes!
And Shirley told me the stories about when the show started. They were completely unprepared for what was going to happen.
Who knew? We sure were. Why wouldn't they have been?
But people just started showing up.
Yeah, in droves.
In large numbers. And other than Plum Creek, which was owned by the Gordons, and the church, which is just there available for people to see, they really didn't have anything. And it was the beginning of all the things that Walnut Grove has become for tourists, or people who love Laura today. And so we're going to talk about that, all of that, in this next hour.
Yes.
All right. one of the leaders of the Walnut Grove 50th anniversary celebration, is with us today. She's a trained educator and she is passionate about all things Laura Ingalls Wilder.
Good.
She began working in Walnut Grove's Laura Ingalls Wilder Museum in 2013. She's performed and is performing in Walnut Grove's Fragments of a Dream pageant. I just want to say that again. Fragments of a Dream
It's
pageant.
a great name.
The Laura Ingalls Wilder Museum is known for their pageant. I've heard about it for years and years and years. And this year she is serving as the event coordinator, which sounds to me like she's really, really busy. So we thank her in advance. Thank you for finding time to talk to us. Please welcome to the show, Wendy Sjoblom, to the Little House 50th Anniversary podcast.
Yay! Hi, Wendy.
Hi, I get to see you. I've emailed with you. I know who you are,
We've
but now I'm
all
seeing you.
communicated
I'm
with
seeing you finally.
Yes, I've even emailed with you. Thank you for being here. The event is just days away. I mean, when this drops next week, it will be on the verge of happening. How are you doing? How are things going?
We're all coming to just blow up your life, basically, next week. It's going to be insane.
Things are definitely crazy.
Tell it. What happens, before the storm comes? What's happening?
I mean, right now we're busy making sure, and here at the museum, making sure all of our souvenirs and everything are in stock, getting the gift store nice and clean. We will have the first pageant weekend before the stars come, so we're prepping up for that. This year that's kind of like our dress rehearsal for the reunion weekend. But yeah, so getting all that in line, making sure all the accommodations and food and everything is ready for the reunion, getting in touch with all of our vendors and setting things up in the park and getting everything ready to go, and just getting in the last of those items and the photographs ready for photograph sessions, and just making sure everything's set for people to come.
I have heard, bar none, that the gift shop at the Laura Ingalls Wilder Museum in Walnut Grove is the best Prairie gift shop of all time. And I've washed my hands with Walnut Grove soap. Came from your
lovely.
Shop.
It's lovely. I have as well. So wait, I have to know, who'd you play in the pageant? I've seen the pageant like 87 times at this point. Who did you play in the pageant?
Who hasn't she played in the pageant?
Yeah, that's a better question. Who haven't I played? In the original script, I have been every adult female role with lines except for Caroline Ingalls, Julia Tower, and Laura Ingalls Wilder.
Wait, have you been Mrs. Olsen? Have you been Mrs. Olsen?
I was Mrs. Olsen.
Yes.
At age 15. That was my very first role in the pageant.
You'd love that.
How many years have you done the pageant?
This is my 19th year.
Holy Were you?
It's a career, Wendy.
So hard.
Were you one of those teenagers?
Hey, that's a more consistent career than I've
Yeah.
had.
It's pretty damn good. But, there's always the teenager who's like, you're playing the adult roles, where everyone, you're playing this, you're playing that, you're playing the mother. Wait, what? Were you the kid that's like, you're playing mom? You're going to play Mrs. Yeah, you're 15, and there's somebody 17 playing Laura, but you're going to play Mrs. Olsen. Did they do that to you? They make you mom?
Yeah, my Willie was 6 months younger than me.
Right. I was gonna say, right. What?
It's great.
Yeah, and I believe Nellie was probably like within a year of my age as well. And then Mr. Olsen, of course, was 70. So it was an interesting family dynamic.
Bonkers.
Wow.
Listen,
So
I was cast in a commercial once. I was 29 and I was the mother of two 16-year-olds
Oh, wow.
in this commercial.
Yikes.
Of
and then the
course.
man that they cast as my husband was in his mid-50s with white hair. It was disturbing. This is what happens all the time. Wendy, will you tell us how did you get interest in Laura Ingalls Wilder? Tell us a little about how that all started.
I grew up in the area, so I've known about Walnut Grove my whole life. I read the books in school as a kid. My fourth grade teacher, I think read us several. I remember doing the little follow along book journals with her as she read them out loud to us. And I had seen the pageant and done those things in my childhood. My involvement in the pageant started because actually the person who was Mr. Olsen to my Mrs. Olsen his daughter was directing, and she had come to one of our high school plays and was still searching for people. And she's like, hey, I'd really like you to do this.
Oh.
So that's how I got involved in the pageant. And then I realized that there's so much more about the world of Laura than just, the books, and that every place she lived has a museum of sorts. After college, I was looking for a job as a teacher. I always had summers available, and I was lucky enough to be hired here at the Laura Ingalls Wilder Museum, and I enjoyed meeting all those people and just diving more into the world of Laura with the books by William Anderson and eventually Pamela Smith Hill and Pioneer Girl.
Yes.
And just looking at all of that, I was able to do a road trip to pretty much all of the sites with one of my friends because we're both nerds. She's also in the pageant. She's currently the director.
Awesome.
And yeah, we were able to go check them all out, and it's just a great world. And everyone's story about why they come here and why Walnut Grove or why Laura, whether it be from the books or from the television show, it's just a really interesting place to be.
Allison, tell the story.
Okay.
Tell the story you told me last night about the Japanese girl.
Well,
how she was affected by the books. Because this is a perfect
you
example
get
of what
people.
you're
You
just
keep
saying.
track of how many people from different countries visit. It is insane, and I mean the impact it's had around the world. There was when I was in Nebraska at the Homestead National Monument, there was this young woman from Japan who stood up and raised her hand and said, "I grew up in Tokyo, all tall buildings, couldn't really see the horizon. Watched Little House on the Prairie, and I wanted to live somewhere with the planes went out and you could see the sun come up and the sun go down." And she said, so I went to school and learned English and studied to become a professional translator. I based my career because I wanted to come to America, and I became a Japanese English translator and worked with a company that placed people all over the world. And they said, where do you want to go? You're top of your class. Absolutely, anywhere you want. She said, Nebraska, Kansas, Minnesota, any of these right here. And she got sent to Nebraska and is a successful professional Japanese English translator for businesses in Nebraska, and came on out to Beatrice to see us. And that's the thing.
It's just wild. She could have picked anywhere in the world.
Yeah, they said anywhere in the world. Where do you want to go? Anywhere in the world. She said, I want to go to Nebraska. And she wanted to go somewhere I can see. It's just every day now I can see the sun come up and the sun go down the horizon. It was made
That's
her
sort
life.
of great if you're living in the towers of Tokyo.
That's what she said. She said
Yeah,
it was all
yeah.
buildings. It was great.
Yeah.
But she said, I know the sun's up somewhere. I got a building in the way. And she was obsessed with it. So, and I've met people in Walnut Grove from literally everywhere on earth who have come because of the show, because of the books. Do you keep track, like how many countries, do you have like a list? Like, do you know how many countries come? Do you keep track, like we had this many from Peru this month, or how do you do it?
We have a guest book where everyone writes, and then at the end of each season we kind of tally and look at those things. I can tell you this year so far, I have had the pleasure of talking to people from Colombia, a few people from Japan. They come from everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, you also get a lot of people who are sort of stunned that there really was a Laura Ingalls Wilder because of the show. You sometimes kept
so
and
crazy.
It's the guys. I've seen it myself. I've had staff people tell me it happens, where the wife or the girlfriend has read all the books. She's been to all the museums. She's seen every episode. She knows what she's doing. But the husband or boyfriend got brought along has just kind of went, well, she likes this show. We'll go. It'll be fun. What could go wrong? And has no clue what he's doing. And then goes to the museum and starts seeing, here are Laura's plates. Here's Laura Ingalls Wilder. Here's where her parents were. And goes, this is real? And like wigs out in the middle of the museum because he had like no idea there were actual real humans involved. How often do you get hit with this stuff?
Like every day, multiple times a day in the busy
like,
season.
what?
It's crazy. I mean, the TV show itself says based on the books by Laura Ingalls Wilder. Like,
Sure.
Right there on the
your
screen.
opening credits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
Right.
they thought they were fiction. I don't know. Are these mostly men doing this?
Yeah, I think.
No, not always.
Oh, you do? Oh.
Like it's crazy because we have people who are like, I didn't realize this was a real place, and then you point out like, well, yeah, it's real here in Walnut Grove, but they lived in all these other places.
Right.
You can go visit all these places as well, and they are like, their minds are just blown. Or the people who think that the TV show was exactly how everything happened, and then you have to be like, no, the town of Walnut Grove did not blow up. It's it's okay.
Oh dear. Do they really?
That's why the books were ruined for me, because I was, such an avid fan of the TV show, and then I think I was like in 5th grade. And I was like, I should really read the books now.
No.
And I started reading the books, and I was like, where's Almanzo in the ice bath? Where is like
right?
these things
Well, where are the Garveys? Where's
the Garveys?
I mean,
Albert.
Right. Where's Albert? Yeah.
Why
exactly.
doesn't Mary have a hot husband?
Yeah, right.
Exactly. And I just couldn't get over it. And I was like, this isn't like the TV show at all. And it sort of put me off the books to my shame. I know.
Well, are you still off the books, or have you found your way back to them at all?
No, you know what? You know what found me back to the books is you and Allison reading during COVID.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And it wasn't until then that I think I had to be an adult to appreciate the simplicity of it. Because when I was a kid, I was just like, where's Michael Landon?
Yeah,
dude?
where's the action?
Where? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I couldn't really appreciate the slowness of it, even though the TV show is actually quite slow.
It is.
But there's shirtless Michael Landon, so that's the difference.
Well, we've spent countless shows here talking about your obsession with Michael's shirtless appearances. Yeah, I know.
It's not just me, Dean Butler.
No, you're not alone.
We're still Team Manly.
Yeah,
We're still Team Manly.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But anyway, I think it really took me until hearing you read it during COVID to really understand the simplicity. And I think during that time of COVID too, it sunk in deeper than it would have ordinarily, I think.
Well, for me too. I mean, that's why I went, I should go back and reread them as an adult. It's kind of why I did it. I hadn't read them in several years. I'd read them several times, but what amazed me was there's sort of in jokes in the books. There are things that are meant to go over the children's heads. Mm-hmm. And as an adult, you go, oh no, wait, this is the ha-ha for the moms reading this. Okay, well, one is Charles being completely oblivious to the grasshopper weather and the obvious signs that things are going to go wrong in Walnut Grove. When I don't know why the old man kept saying grasshopper weather. Must be some kind of Swedish expression. And it happens again and again. And anyone who's an adult is going, he just told you the locusts are due. It's locust season.
Oh, Lord.
And you're planting wheat. What are you thinking? It's plainly obvious. You're warned repeatedly like it's a horror movie. The locusts are coming. And he's like, I don't know what they're talking about. And it's like, the other one is in Little House on the Prairie in Kansas, and some weirdo was going on Facebook, how'd they have all those kids and they're all in that house? Well, in Little House on the Prairie, Ma and Pa keep going for these walks around sunset. Hey kids, be good. We're going for a walk. And Laura never explains what's the Mom and Pa sure did like to go for walks. And they would leave the kids at home and say, be good, do the dishes. We're going for a walk after dinner. And they would go for a walk in the moonlight and say, we'll be back.
Wow.
Back later, kids.
Well, that's what you get when you don't build a wall between you and Carrie.
And a couple of chapters later, oh, look, baby Carrie is born. And there's no connection, and it's because it's from Laura's point of view. It's like la 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 la. How did that happen?
Of course.
Oh, there's a baby.
Course.
And she had a baby. I didn't know she was having a baby. And
That's
as an
great.
adult, you read it and go, oh, right, duh.
They're going for walks in the
Charles and Caroline,
walks in the moonlight.
They're still a young couple. They're in this beautiful romantic setting on the prairie. Hi, of course. And it's all in there. And so as a grown-up, you read it and you realize there's things in it that just, it's on like 4 different levels of things that are happening in the books that like kids are not. It's really, you really have to go back and reread them like at several phases in your life to like get everything that's in there.
Yeah, I think that's true, though. I mean, as I think with the TV show too, is that watching it when you're a kid is a totally different experience than watching it when you're an adult as well.
It's complete.
It really is.
So would you say when you're getting more book people, more show people?
I do believe that it's probably about 50-50 at this point.
Really?
Good.
There's with Laura having been in the news in the last several years and different things about some of her comments in Little House on the Prairie. I think that has brought some more people to her book. And then again, with the publishing of Pioneer Girl and all of those subsequent books, publishing her original manuscripts, people are really enjoying learning more about the real Laura and following her that way, in addition to the TV show fans. But when you ask people, I would say it's probably about 50-50 of why they're coming.
Is like every single person who lives in Walnut Grove involved in the pageant or the museum, or Laura is in some way? There's not that many people.
Yeah, what's the population? What's the population of Walnut Grove, and then what's the population when the festival is happening?
Well, the population of the festival is happening is probably about like twice the amount of people in Walnut Grove. The last I remember, I don't have a current statistic for their population. The last I remember, it was somewhere around 800 people.
Right.
You had
Right.
600 when I first went there in the early 90s. It was population 600.
Oh, it's growing.
Yes, booming. Is everyone involved in the whole
No.
Laura phenomenon? Are there people who are just like, yeah, whatever?
Yeah, the town of Walnut Grove, when everything first started in the 70s, a lot of people were really excited, and like organizations were all working together to make this a good place. And I think that as it continued to be important, that kind of, and as our organizations, both the pageant and the museum, as those organizations grew and developed more of like their own boards and committees and things, that the townspeople were able to kind of step back so that these are more like businesses and things that they're just supporting from the sidelines. So, and I think that just the amount of tourism eventually was like, people are like, oh, tourists are coming. Okay, cool. Like this happens all the time. The newness of it also wore off. So there are people who are involved in both organizations from the town, but then there are also people in the town who just go about their daily life and are like, oh, but it's a pageant weekend. People will be here. It'll be busy.
So they sort of get used to. Now I have to ask, because there's marvelous displays in music. They have Laura things. They have things from the show. I think. Do you have a piece of fence for the musical in there? Don't you? Do you have a thing from the musical?
I want us to take a break before we get into that topic.
Okay, everyone, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with Wendy.
When you visit Simi Valley, California, you are stepping into the pages of history. Go from the pioneers to the presidents. Explore beautiful wildflowers. Hike through iconic Hollywood locations. Yes, and end your day aboard the actual Air Force One at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum. Throughout the summer, take the Little House 50th Anniversary bus tour at Big Sky Movie Ranch. It's less than 15 minutes from Los Angeles, 30 minutes from the Universal Studios. Simi Valley has small-town charm with big-time history. Go to visitsimivalley.com for more information.
We also want to thank Alexander GMC of Simi Valley, Golden State Water Company, Marketingscape, Strathern Historical Society, and WM, formerly Waste Management, and Vista at Simi Valley. Thank you all for your support of the Little House 50th Anniversary podcast. And we can say here right now that visitsimivalley.com has just renewed their sponsorship of our of the 50th Anniversary podcast. So we're very pleased about that. Thank you, visitsimivalley.com.
Yes.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you. Visit simivalley.com. And we are back with Wendy Sjoblom, best last name in the world. It's my favorite. It's so good. She's the special events coordinator at the Laura Ingalls Wilder Museum in Walnut Grove. Yes, the real Walnut Grove, Minnesota. Yes, it's real. It exists, people. Okay, Allison, what did you want to ask?
I had a question because there's so much stuff in the museum. You have stuff from the show. You have stuff from Laura's real life. You have stuff from this. Do you have a fence thing that was in the musical? Do you have a piece for the musical as well?
I honestly don't know.
I'll have to check because you added so much stuff over the years.
It's a lot of things. You have a lot of things.
One of the things I liked is they have these big glass cases with stuff from actors who have visited.
Yes.
There's a Kevin Hagen case because he went a bunch of stuff back when nobody was going to anything. Kevin Hagen, Doc Baker went to everything.
Sings.
Doc Baker, he had a musical act. He come out, he'd sing Surrey with the fringe on top. And
Kevin had a wonderful baritone.
Does anyone have
kind of
Yes,
voice.
there's CDs. I think I have some. He was brilliant.
Oh my gosh.
And then he would get into his tunes and do like Cats in the Cradle and the Silver Spoon.
My God.
Oh, you've died.
He had his black suit he wore. It was the
I'm
whole thing.
dead right now.
Okay.
Okay.
So he went everywhere.
Can't
He
I go
was
back in
all
time?
over the country. He was in Mansfield. He was in Walnut Grove. And so I went there actually, and I said it was wild because I was actually doing a fundraiser for an AIDS hospice in Minneapolis. And they said, let's go to Walnut Grove. That'll be fun. And it turned into a thing. So there are cases exhibiting things from this, and I have lovely glass case. However, do you still have the items that made it? Yes, you do. You're laughing around. I had to get into Plum Creek because Plum Creek was there. It's beautiful. It really looks like Plum Creek. It's gorgeous. And there were so many people there that first time I was there, freaking out that I was there. And I'm waiting in Plum. I was in my good dress. I was all dressed up. I'd come from this thing. So I'm hiking up my skirts and walking, and they're like, oh, this is great.
Any crawdads in the water?
Luckily, no, because I then, of course, said, it's too good, got to do it. Sat down, threw myself in the water and said, Mother! And everybody went crazy. Had so much fun. It was a hot day. I needed, but I was wearing pantyhose. This tells you what year it was. And I said, well, these are shattered. These are gone. So I threw them in the trash, and someone got them out and washed them mercifully and put them in a display case in Walnut Grove. And then I later, a year or two, came back and there were socks that I ruined. Do you still have my socks and pantyhose in a glass case?
Of course.
There we go.
Nothing creepy about that.
I'm the only person I know who has pantyhose and socks in a glass case in a museum.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
that's awesome.
But you said they dug in the trash.
I threw those pantyhose in the trash. The socks I gave, by then I knew, I said, I give up. Here's my socks. But the pantyhose, I threw those in the trash. And then I come back, and there they are in the case. Someone got them out. Now, they were clean. They clearly cleaned them. But, oh my.
I did not know that they were dug out of the trash.
I did not say, here,
you got to add to the story, Wendy.
I am not making this up. There they are.
Yeah, no,
there's a picture.
So you need to. So Wendy, you need to add to the story the descriptor of this. If you have time of all the other things that you're doing around the pageant and the big weekend, that would be a fun ad in your descriptor of this display. You know, when we were doing the 50th anniversary event in Southern California, we had people communicating with your museum to borrow things.
Yeah.
Memorabilia. I know Pamela Roylance reached out to you. I know that Rachel Greenbush was in communication with you, and I just want to take this chance to thank you publicly for the support that you gave our event with the shipping of the things that you provided. That was very trusting of you to allow those things to come. I hope that everything has come back
you got everything
to
back.
you, and it's all on display.
Broken.
But you were so great about it. Your museum was so wonderful about it, and because we knew that so many things, because we've all been there, we know that there are things from the show that you have, and thank you for sharing with us. Our audience in Southern California just fell all over themselves, loving all these things that they saw.
Well, it was our pleasure. You're very welcome.
Wendy, when did the museum open?
The museum held its first meeting on October 10th, 1974.
Hello. Yes, surprise.
So, right.
Wow.
September,
so literally within
October.
a month of the premiere of the show.
You need to open a museum.
Whoa, wait, that's wild. So the success of the show only 2 or 3 weeks into the run was already so huge that it affected the town so much that you all knew that you had to open a museum?
Yes. So prior to that, the only site that was here was the dugout site that was owned by the Gordon family. And it's been in their family for generations. And they, at that time, had just been visiting with the people who'd show up. They'd talk to them. All of a sudden, it became too much for them to handle. So they, held a meeting to start opening a museum. And the first museum was in the back of the gas station here in town.
Wow.
And then eventually continued to change and grew into what it is today.
Stan and Hazel Gordon are really two of the great benefactors of, and Stan grew up in Walnut Grove, so or certainly had a family presence there. He tells great stories about, at some point they felt like they had to get some help because of all the roads and the parking and all the things that they were taking care of so that people could go to the dugout side. And they put a little collection box. There's no one there taking money. They just put a little collection box. As you come in, you can put $1 or $2 or $5, whatever you want. And it's sort of an honor system. And I love Stan telling about the fact he knew that the fans of Little House were really good people because he would find notes in the collection box saying, we don't have any money with us, but we'll send you something. And envelopes would arrive in the mail with $1, with $2 in it, of people thanking he and Hazel for making this space available for people to come and look at. And it really is quite wonderful. One of my favorite moments that I had at Plum Creek took place in a January. Yeah, no kidding. January, I think it was 2010, something like that, 2011. And I took my camera to shoot at Plum Creek, and it's so beautiful in the summertime. I mean, there's this leafy coverage over the creek, and it's beautiful. Seeing it with icicles coming off the trees and snow on the branches and a little ice on the edges of the stream, it was absolutely gorgeous. And I thought, I mean, now obviously wicked cold too. I mean, I don't know how people survived out there during that time. I mean,
During that time, I don't know either.
It's
How'd
and
they
it's
do it?
tough today.
I don't know how they do it now.
Yeah. But it's a beautiful, beautiful site, and the Gordons have been incredibly supportive of all that. Do you see them? Are they there during the summers? Are we going to see them? Will the cast see the Gordons when we're in town?
Unfortunately, probably not this year.
Can we explain the dugout? Because it's not like
Oh,
it's
yes.
not like it's there. There's like an indentation basically in the ground,
exactly.
and then ropes and a big sign. Like it's not like it's not like you can go in it, but you can be there. Explain how this dugout works thing.
So, first of all, the dugout itself was originally dug into the hill. So they just dug a hole into the side of a hill, and then they would like pat the wall and
Like lived in.
like just make sure it's pretty sturdy. And they'd even whitewash it so it wasn't so dark in there, which I think is pretty cool. But because no one was living in it for several years after the Ingalls left, the dugout wasn't being taken care of, so it eventually collapsed in on itself. And when Garth Williams came to illustrate in the 1950s and looked for all these sites, at that time the dugout was just kind of like a small hole in the ground. So they were able, like they knew where it was, and some of the citizens of Walnut Grove remembered playing in it at that time. Previously, so there are some stories of that. But because of that, and because Laura didn't write her books until the 1930s, and Garth Williams publishing or illustrations was when they published those kind of is what brought people to Walnut Grove. We weren't able to preserve any of that. So what they did was they measured out a space where it's now just a giant crater. There's not a hole. It's just like this big dip in the ground. It looks like something fell out of the sky in it, pretty much. It's the dugout
Meteor
in on
site,
itself. Yeah. And so they measured out ropes around it to put how like the dimensions it actually was, and then they have a nice sign describing what it is. That they actually replaced that sign or updated that sign this year. There's new signage out at Plum Creek this year. When you guys come and see, when we go on our tour, you can see that.
Well, and you did the Gordons, or maybe the town did the beautiful new bridge too that crosses over, which is really quite. Now you've had quite a bit of rain this year, my understanding. So are people actually going to be able to get to this year?
Yeah, and what happens to the dugout in the rain?
Well, it's up. It's raised.
Is it covered?
Yeah. The creek has moved paths enough that it takes a lot of rain for it to get covered. However, in 2018, that's why we had to replace the bridge. We had that huge flood where we got over 4 inches of rain in less than an hour, and we flooded out like the pageant.
I'm sorry, did you say 40 inches of rain?
No,
4.
But in an hour.
In an hour.
But in 60 minutes.
1 hour.
Wow.
It's not normal.
60 minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
Plus other rain on top of that. But that was the year we ended up having to cancel the pageant. It was declared a national disaster. So we were able, like with funding, but that year, opening at a pageant, we were out there cleaning up the muddy mess.
And young Laura Ingalls Wilder's heart was absolutely devastated that she couldn't be in the play that year, in the pageant.
Yes, we were able to do the last 2 weekends.
That's
and the
good.
museum was able to remain open through all that, so that was nice. But the creek site at that time, that's when the bridge broke, and that was pretty much closed for the rest of the season in 2018.
Yeah.
So the Gordon family worked to build the new bridge so that they could reopen that site And this year we did get quite a bit of rain, but the really heavy rain went to both the south and the east of Walnut Grove. So the creek was raised and it had flooded its banks. So the dugout site was closed for several weeks. But it has since been able to reopen. The waters are receding. It's back to safe levels for people to go out there.
Good.
And there was no like big flooding damage.
How are the wildflowers? Are the wildflowers
Field.
done, or are they there in the fields around the dugout now?
They're still blooming all over right now.
Yeah, it's so
I can't
gorgeous.
guarantee what the heat will do to them for the next week, but
Sure.
But that's the one where they planted the wildflowers, and they did flowers that grew at the time Laura was there, and flowers she mentioned in the book specifically. So when you walk through that field, all those descriptions of the flowers, like, and there they
that's
are, and there's the
lovely.
blue one, and there's the it was gorgeous, 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 gorgeous.
I want to talk about that. I mean, I think people are going to love seeing that. You know, if you haven't been in Walnut Grove and you're listening and you're planning to be there this next weekend, and we're all there, or this coming weekend, it's really quite lovely, and I recommend it very, very
And I
much.
just checked my maps,
Yes.
and it's about 2.5 hour drive from Minneapolis.
Yes,
Yuppers.
exactly. Yeah,
And if
that's,
you're daring, you can drive around and go visit Sleepy Eye in Mankato, because they're
Yes.
real too.
Yeah,
There's
those are
really
real
a Sleepy
too.
Eye, and there's really a Mankato, and you can drive to them.
I went to the first Laura Palooza in 2010 in Mankato. It
was awesome.
I know. It was amazing to go there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was at Mankato State University, and so it's a real place, and it was great to go visit that. I want to talk about the pageant, because
Yes.
you've been doing this pageant. So when did the pageant actually premiere? Because everything is happening, sort of building off of 1974. When did that happen?
So the pageant didn't start right away in 1974. It took a few years to realize
Sure.
that dream. That the first year was 1978, and they performed in the school to a standing room only crowd.
Wow.
It was so big, so crowded that after that year, they decided they needed to move it to a bigger location. And then a local farmer donated the space of land that has become the pageant site. Allows the pageant to rent it and use it.
Yeah.
It's
There it is.
an,
There you go.
Yeah,
like
there
an
it is.
amphitheater.
There it is.
And they've 1979 was their first year out there, and they've just continued to build the sets and everything since.
Now this thing's cuckoo. I mean, it has oxen, fire, music.
Yeah, no, there's
I
so
heard they
Frank,
raised
it was
a barn in front of you.
so was it was basically someone wrote Fragments of a Dream, and that was the show that was presented for years and years and years. Or was there any other iteration of that until this year? Because this is a big year.
Yeah, so originally the show was written from the perspective of Caroline Ingalls,
Huh.
Interesting.
which I don't think I've ever read that script. But that's how the show was originally presented. And then sometime, I believe in the 90s, they rewrote it to what everyone knows as the Fragments of a Dream pageant that they did for several years, to come from the perspective of Laura Ingalls Wilder
As an older woman,
narrator.
it's her flashback.
Laura
of her youth.
comes out and starts narrating, and it becomes
Right.
yeah.
So now in 2024, the pageant has gone through its next evolution. What are we going to be seeing, or what do audiences have in store when they come to Walnut Grove? And it's presumably for the next few years, you're going to see new things.
Yes. So what we did was we made Fragments of a Dream a trilogy. So we started with the original script that talks about the Ingalls first moving to Walnut Grove in 1874. And then we split it up to be their first year there, and then like their next year right before they leave for Borough. And we did that show last year.
Okay.
And then this year we are airing the third installment of the trilogy, which covers their return from Borough until they leave to move to Dismit.
It's just like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, kind of. Except there's not as much.
There's not Gollum. There's just Nelly instead of Gollum. Got it.
Yes. But so it focuses more on their time when they lived in the town of Walnut Grove.
Right.
Because when they moved back to Borough, they didn't move back to the farm. They moved to town and lived somewhere behind the master's store and hall and
Oh,
hotel
got it.
in town. And Pa did carpentry work and some butchering and things like that.
So, so are we going to see? One of the things I've loved about the pageant,
Well, you
for
get
years
live
watching
oxen,
it,
you have
is
fire, you
is
have
the way
music.
is
It's
the
like,
way. I'm
good
sorry.
Lord.
The music.
How many times you said it before? How many times have you both been to the pageant?
Well, Allison's been there
since
probably.
92 or 91,
Oh my God!
right?
Because I came in the '90s. I don't think I saw the pageant the first time I was there. We did the Bringing Home Nellie picnic as a fundraiser. Seriously, it was epic.
I love
For
it.
an AIDS hospice that was being put together in Minneapolis. And what was amazing, this is early '90s when not everyone was on board and wearing a red ribbon. And the group that were putting together this hospice to take care of sick people in Minneapolis, it was a church, and they called around and said, okay, we're going to visit Mankato, we're going to go sleep it, let's go to Walnut Grove, let's do a whole thing. And the mayor of Walnut Grove at the time said, we've got all the 600 people, but hey, it's Nellie, let's make this work, let's do it. And
Power
not
of Nellie,
only
man.
did we have this huge thing and a picnic, and I think I spoke for like hours. We talked about Little House, we talked about AIDS, we talked about the hospice, but I got letters after I left that the 4-H club in Walnut Grove started making blankets for children with AIDS in different countries and sending them out. So, I mean, the people of Walnut Grove are like the people of Walnut Grove that we imagined on the show. They absolutely leapt at the opportunity to reach out and help people.
Yeah.
Who no one was helping. It was epic. It really was. So I didn't see the pageant there, but then I started coming back, and I came by myself. I came with Charlotte Stewart. I came with like groups at 2 and 3,
right.
and then we had the 40th and the 45th. So, oh gosh, I think I've seen the pageant 7 or 8 times.
Yeah, I was going to say I've seen it 4 or 5 times at this point, and
amazing.
I think it's, I've always thought one of the things that I've loved about what you have done there, and it's the stagecraft. This is not stagecraft like you're going to see in a Broadway theater. It is it has a very homespun quality about it, but one of the really cool things is to watch buildings get built.
Yeah.
As part of the action. Now, in this next version that we're going to see, are there any buildings, something getting built that we all get to see?
Already.
Yes, the beginning of the show starts with them finishing up the master's store and hall.
Awesome.
So that is, as you know, the building that the museum purchased in 2018. But Charles Ingalls helped build that in real life, as we learned in Pioneer Girls. So that is how the show starts.
Ah, fantastic.
And there's music and it's such a lovely setting.
Yeah.
Are there live animals in this one? Because when the oxen came rolling on with the covered wagon, I went bananas. Are there live animals in this one too?
Of course.
Yes, good.
Horses are a non-negotiable for us.
Okay, good. It's real. It's very real. And it's kind of freaky. It's like because this woman comes out and she's luring, and then suddenly it's like, oh, wait, this is happening. And there's actual horses coming out onto the stage.
Is there older Laura, or is that convention, has that gone away?
Nope, that has stayed the same.
Okay, so older Laura is essentially the narrator of this story. Yep. Remains the narrator of the story, which is really a wonderful part. I've had this recollection that she sings, that older Laura, did she sing the song? No, that's not true. Someone was singing.
There was a church scene, and there was a big group of kids,
right.
And there was a girl who played the fiddle that was freaking amazing one year.
Oh, yes. Yep.
So you have musical interludes.
She is not in the cast this year playing the fiddle, but all of our recorded music, is music that the pageant itself has recorded, so we own all the rights to.
Oh, that's
great.
And she plays the fiddle in a lot of those pieces that you hear during the show.
And are you in it again this year?
I am. It's my 19th year, and I'm playing Emmeline Masters.
Yay!
Matriarch of the Masters family.
Is this a new role for you, or have you done this one before?
This is new because this is a new character. This show focuses a lot on the Masters Hotel and Laura's time there. So, yeah.
So how
Nice.
many
It's a whole
times
new
has the pageant
thing.
changed? Only 3 times? So the original 1978, then in the 90s, and then now?
And now this
3 times
trilogy.
that it was such a large change, yes. There are lots of pieces of the script and even the old script. So there were a lot of times small changes where they might put in a scene they hadn't done in several years or things like that. And then, of course, in 2020, when everything was shut down, we did a virtual production for the 3 weekends to stay relevant. And we did lots of interviews. I think I moderated some interviews with both Dean and Allison actually in 2020 as Wendy Rogatsky. But yeah, we aired some of those old scenes then as well. So it's been similar. And like I said, this is similar, but it's just more. And then, yeah, some new scenes thrown in.
I love it. It's so sweet.
Watching the show, you'll recognize parts of Act 2 as things that you saw in the original show, because the original show covered all of the 5 years in that time, and now we've just spread that out more.
We will be right back with more from Wendy Sjoblom, best last name ever, after this.
If you've been enjoying our podcast as much as we have and hope that we continue past 50 episodes, here's your chance. Here's your chance to help make that happen. By becoming a Patreon subscriber, not only will you help the Little House on the Prairie 50th Anniversary podcast to live on, but you'll also get exclusive content just for you.
Here's what's in store for you. Join monthly Q&A sessions where you can ask us about anything. Whether it's about our work, personal interests, or advice on your own projects, we're here to connect and share.
Enjoy unique content created specifically for Patreon subscribers, including bonus segments from our shows.
You'll have a say in what we create, and you'll have a voice in future content.
Benefit from exclusive discounts on merchandise and entries into special giveaways. It's our way of saying thank you for your support.
Receive personalized shout-outs in videos, podcasts, or social media posts.
Because your support on Patreon allows us to dedicate more resources to creating the content that you love.
You could join the Little House 50th Anniversary podcast community on Patreon and become a Prairie patron for just $5 a month.
The first 50 new members will get autographed pictures of Allison and me, a signed Living on a Prairie card from Pamela,
and signed book plates for all of our books. Yes, for Confessions of a Prairie Bitch and for Prairie Man, My Little House Life and Beyond.
We thank you so much for your continued support, and we cannot wait to share our ongoing journey with you on Patreon. Stay tuned for our launch date. And we are back. Wendy, I want to know, what is the difference between the real Walnut Grove and the TV Walnut Grove? You know, I always thought it was funny that the TV Walnut Grove had the mountainous plains.
Yes, that is probably one of the biggest differences is our landscape in comparison to that of Simi Valley, California.
Yes.
There are no mountains on the Grove. We live on the prairie, in the plains.
I mean, prairie is in the title. It's kind of the gig. It's a prairie, people. Yeah.
Yeah. I think from the TV show and the real Walnut Grove, some of the biggest differences are some of the extra people we see in the TV show. Those people didn't necessarily exist in Walnut Grove. Like Mary never got married and never had children. And
how dare you?
The Ingalls never adopted Albert.
Shattering my dream.
Any of that. And then even just some of the buildings, the way, like the house that the Ingalls built in Walnut Grove looks nothing like the TV show house. It was much smaller and
I wonder what that decision was. I wonder what that decision, Dean and Allison, do you have any idea on the input of what the TV Little House,
because it was so
the design, the
that
look
sloped roof and all that stuff,
Such
like
a
was really
signature
specific.
house.
Like why?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, maybe that's why, because it's so kind of unusual.
It is an iconic silhouette. There's no question. I mean, anybody who knows Little House looks at that silhouette and knows exactly what they're looking at. There's no confusing it. There's something so welcoming and warm about it. It's cozy, it's comfortable, it's inviting. It's just a beautiful, beautiful, simple design. The big differences that you see are the trees, as we've mentioned, the elevations. I think that was one of things that shocked me when I went to Walnut Grove, the real Walnut Grove for the first time, which was so different from the Walnut Grove that we experienced, and it made me think about what audiences must experience, is that,
totally.
in Walnut Grove in July, when we go there, it's very green.
It rains in Walnut Grove.
Yeah, it rains on the plains. It's very green. And California's Walnut Grove, as
very
California
dusty.
is, it's very dry. It's the grass all
desert.
dies in the summertime, and that's when it gets green in the Midwest. When the rains come, and I obviously we're getting some nice rains. It seems we're getting some nice rains in the central part of the country now because things are leafy and green. That's a big contrast. But I think the storytelling sort of overcame the topography.
Yeah,
Well, it had to have, because it's so ridiculous to think that this was a prairie on the TV show.
Yeah.
And it was green in the winter because that's when it rains. So our hills are beautifully green in the winter.
Yes.
And it's spring.
And
Yeah.
I have wondered before, like, did no one realize that there are mountains in this prairie? Like, was this not a thing? Did no one write in and be like, "Hey, this"?
Oh, I
this
think
is
there were
not-
lots of letters about that stuff.
Oh,
But I
people
think
had a fit.
But people let it. People let it go.
Yeah.
They did let it go. There were all kinds of comments about the things that we've discussed with Wendy. I mean, the names of characters, whole plot lines, all these things. So many things were not
Albert.
there, or that were in the series were not in the books, and that was just Michael's creative invention on storytelling.
And he got away with, I mean, it's such a baller move to be like, we're doing a show on the prairie, in the mountains
Yes,
area.
in the mountains of
it's
California.
like, what's available?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, he got away with it. It's such a baller move. Dean and Allison, did you know this festival and the pageant was happening? Because in 1978, you guys, well, Dean wasn't even on the show
Right.
yet, but Allison,
Right.
you were. Did you know this was happening?
No, because I didn't set foot in the place till the 90s. And
Yeah, we were never invited until Cast was never invited until some. I don't know. Do you have any idea, Wendy, when Cast was
I think
first?
the 80s?
Was it late 80s?
Yeah, I think
Early
it was
80s?
in the 80s, and I
Okay,
think it was
okay.
coordinated originally through NBC.
Got it.
Yeah. I think
Because
Catherine
I know
Catherine
that-
McGregor went once relatively early.
Yep.
Mrs. She
Yeah,
was there.
Catherine McGregor went, and
And
Melissa
Kevin.
Sue Anderson was here.
And
Oh, wow.
Kimmel Sue
Wow.
and Kevin and
And Kevin.
Dabs.
Right.
Did Dabs go? He got around a lot. He was.
Did he
touring a
really?
bit.
Okay.
Oh, Dabs was.
Okay.
When I got to Mansfield, they're like, Dabs has been here, Kevin's been here. I was like, those two, Dabs and Kevin Ray, went everywhere. The Reverend and the Doctor.
You know,
I
there
wish
was
they were
a-
still around now.
I
to
know.
do
No, he's a
all of
lovely
this.
man. There was a great story when the show ended that our producer Kent McCrae and Stan Ivar, who played John Carter, who got the original Little House from the location, wanted to gift it to Walnut Grove, and sought to gift it and contacted the Film Commission in Minnesota, and Governor Jesse Ventura got involved, and they tried to give it away and they couldn't make it work. And I think it was so disappointing, because if there was any place that this house belonged, it would have been in the real Walnut Grove. And I know that the real Walnut Grove would have bent over backwards to make it safe and give it a home that would have stood the test of time. But who knows? Amazing things can still happen.
You never know. And we're going there. Now, who's all coming? Who's all coming
Yes.
from our show? And then what are we doing? We have a brunch and a lunch and a thing, a dinner. We have meals with people.
Yeah,
we
what are
have
we doing?
autographing. Give us tell us our schedule. I have it written
Yes,
down
what's our
somewhere.
itinerary?
And who's all
I think the
coming?
most exciting thing is that you get to hang out with me.
Absolutely.
Good for
Remember
you,
that
Wendy.
That's really the most important part.
Good
I'm
for
just
you.
kidding. So the people who are visiting, or the stars that are coming, are obviously Dean Butler, who we know played Almanzo Wilder, Allison Arngrim, who played Nellie Olson, Charlotte Stewart, who played Mrs. Beadle, David Friedman, who played Jason Carter,
great.
Wendy Lou
Love him.
Lee, who was one of the twins that played Grace Ingalls,
So
Jennifer
Grace.
Donati, who was one of the twins that played Baby Rose Wilder, Patrick Laberto, who played Andrew Garvey, Pamela Roylance, who played Sarah
wow.
Carter, Leslie Landon, who played Etta Plump,
Yeah.
Robin Sidney Greenbush, who was one of the twins that played
Yes.
Carrie Ingalls,
Robin's
and then
going.
I think it's
Michael
great that
Landon
she's
Jr.
coming, because they don't travel a lot.
No,
I think
they
that's
don't.
great
Michael
that she's coming.
and Leslie Landon are going. This is a great group.
Yeah, we get Mike Jr. and Leslie, and then the twins. It's hard when you're twins in Hollywood. People want you to be everywhere at the same time. Your mothers dress you alike. It's a thing. So it's very hard for twins to grow up and differentiate. And we've heard that from Wendy and Robin and Rachel and Wendy and Brenda and the gangs. And Robin and Rachel, sometimes they went everywhere together. And then like Rachel went to everything, and then Robin went to everything, and then Rachel went to everything, and then they went together. So Robin, she hasn't been to very many things. So this is
Not
yay!
recently. No, this is
Miss
good.
Robin, we love that.
This is good, and I think
group.
fans love seeing the Greenbush girls because they don't see them often. So that's one or the other, and if you get both, that's really great. But it's nice for fans to see them.
So we have breakfast, we have dinner. What are we doing? What are we doing? There's meals.
Yeah. So the event kicks off officially Friday with a bruncheon. There are 77 lucky people who will get to attend an egg baked bruncheon catered at the English Lutheran Church in Walnut Grove.
Bruncheon, you're calling it?
Yes,
that's cool.
Yes, I am.
I've never heard
Luncheon
that.
bruncheon.
A bruncheon.
It's probably not a real term, but it's essentially a luncheon, only you're serving brunch. So
Very good, Wendy.
We can do
I
that.
feel like that.
I'm in.
Very good.
Yeah, and then on Friday we'll have 2 autograph sessions from one starting at 12 p.m. and the second one starting at 2:45 p.m. in the city park, as well as
It's a lovely setting.
some
too, by
things
the way.
happening in the city park with the family festival and different music acts on stage and possibly some stars talking about their experience on stage. And then Friday night they will speak for about an hour and a half prior to the Laura Ingalls pageant in Walnut Grove. So there are still general admission tickets available for that.
Nice.
And then we get up Saturday and we start the day with an autograph session at 9:15 a.m. And then we'll have a luncheon Saturday for another lucky 77 people.
Wow.
Is there some significance to the 77?
There's 11 of you, and each of you have a table of 7.
Perfect.
The significance is that we worked very hard to make sure that people couldn't attend both.
Right.
So the different people.
Okay, different
both
crowd.
times.
Good.
Which I think
and
is
we're
nice
pretty
for the
good as a
fans.
group. I think people who are there, that 77, they'll find that we move around and
We talk to
we'll
everybody.
come and shake hands
We're
and
fun.
say hello and
Yeah.
this is a good size. 77 is a nice size group that you
it's
can
doable.
interact with. That's really good.
Yes. Yeah. And then we have after the luncheon, there'll be another autograph session in the afternoon. And you'll go to the pageant site again that evening and speak prior to the show as you did on Friday with your little whatever you have to say in some question and answer sessions.
Right.
And then Sunday morning, to end our time together, we will have a pancake breakfast followed by a photo session from 10 to 12. Similar to the photo sessions they did the last 2 reunions where we have all of them posed sitting together. People
Oh, yes, a
pay
nice group
their
shot. Yes, lovely.
$20 and get their group photo with everyone. And
Nice.
then we will say goodbye and send you back to Minneapolis or wherever you're going to get home.
Now
And
that
this
is a
July
deal.
19th, 20th, and 21st.
I just
So
want to say
after
this
the
is a
episode drops.
huge deal for getting into just the park to be there. There's no admission for that. You need to get a bracelet though for the autographs.
Yes. So you can come to Walnut Grove for free or whatever it costs you to get here. And the museum, you can purchase admission specifically for the museum if you're interested in seeing Allison's socks. Or hospital or any of the other TV memorabilia.
Jeez Louise, what article of clothing is you going to drop this time?
I'm totally giving them some clothes this time. I am going to drop another article of clothing for the 50th. I'm still deciding what that will be, but I will absolutely leave an article of clothing this year.
You can just, wear some bloomers and, oops, there they go.
That would be very good. And so, there's stuff in the store. People can buy stuff in the store, and then we'll then come and we autograph it. What you got?
I know our friends, also Susie Schubert and Angie Bailey, who wrote Little House Life Hacks. They're going to be there. Yeah, it sounds like a really good time.
Do you have the guy who does the 1800 style photos? The tintypes?
No, we do not
darn.
have
Okay.
someone who does that.
Because you have a lot of 1800s cool stuff at these festivals. It's always fun stuff.
Your gift store is pretty spectacular. You have everybody's books. You have all the other merchandise that people have created. We have a very enterprising group of cast members, and we have created all kinds of different products, and a lot of those I know are going to be available for sale in your store.
And then you have your regular, you have bonnets and tin cups and aprons and things.
Oh.
We just got new tin cups.
Yes.
Oh, those are lovely.
Nice.
Great?
Our old manufacturer went out of business, and it's been a while to find the ones that will put our logo on them. But these are actually made to hold water, so our new tin cups you can drink out of.
The other ones were kind of decorative. You could put your pens and pencils.
Oh, you could, but they wouldn't hold liquid.
Not very well. A little bit. If you put just a little juice in it or a little water, so it wasn't too hot, you could, have a little kids' tea party briefly. But if you put like hot coffee or tea, that was going to leak eventually. It was going to leak eventually. But they were very decorative. A good pencil holder, a little thing, put candy dish in it, whatever kind of thing. But these you can put a cup of coffee in there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be a little hot because it's metal, but
okay. I'll need to buy a crate of those to be autographing and selling on my store because those are very popular.
No one wants a leaky tin cup.
No.
In a moment of attempted refreshment.
All right, we're about to take a break, but we will be right back.
When you visit Simi Valley, California, you're stepping into the pages of history. Go from the pioneers to the presidents. Explore beautiful wildflowers. Hike through iconic Hollywood locations and end your day aboard the actual Air Force One at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum. Throughout the summer, take the Little House 50th Anniversary Bus Tour at Big Sky Movie Ranch. It's less than 15 minutes from Los Angeles and 30 minutes from Universal Studios. Simi Valley has small-town charm with big-time history. Go to visitsimivalley.com for more information. We are so grateful to visitsimivalley.com for their commitment to present the Little House 50th Anniversary podcast. Thank you, Visit Simi Valley.
We also want to thank Cozy TV, RoadX, Modern Prairie, Price Ford, City of Simi Valley, Adventist Health, Simi Valley. Thank you all so much for your support of this podcast. And we're back, but the music is so pretty, I didn't want to talk over it. Okay.
That's the Laura Ingalls theme, by the way.
That's so good. No wonder I liked it so much. And we are back. We are back with Wendy Sjoblom, best last name ever. And I want to know, to end this conversation, what are your favorite Little House books and or TV episodes?
Oh, she's
I'm
got
dying
a favorite
to find out. You want to start with books?
Yes.
Okay.
My favorite book is On the Banks of Plum Creek, which is not surprising since I'm in Walnut Grove. But as far as all of the original series go, I do think that one has the most action.
Yeah, it does.
There's so much that happens while they're here in Walnut Grove. And then a very close second, of course, is These Happy Golden Years. I love the story of the courtship between Laura and Almanzo. I think that's just beautifully told. And then as far as
no, it is beautifully told, and I love the way she writes Laura's maturity as a young girl. I never get past the scene, or I love the scene where, would you like a ring? It depends on who's giving it to me. What if it was me? It would depend on the ring. I mean, I just think, and what Laura at that point is. In book time is sort of 17.
That's pretty
16,
nervy.
17. I mean, very, very mature and centered to be able to ask it that way. Now, Laura, when she wrote this, was in her early 70s, and her daughter Rose is helping to craft the story. But I love that she imbued Laura with that kind of common sense, thoughtfulness, self-determination. Really, really lovely qualities, and I just think it's written so wonderfully. I wish we'd shot it that way. I wish we'd shot that scene. It probably was just going to be expensive to shoot on a Friday night, in the moonlight.
And I also don't know if the TV Laura Ingalls Wilder would have been. I don't know. Maybe she would have been that ballsy.
Oh, I think they could have written her that way. Absolutely could have written her that way. Yeah. I think she would have played that very well.
Oh, yeah,
actually.
Yeah.
Except it was perfect how it was, so let's not mess.
Yes, no, it all worked out fine. But
Beautiful.
I'm so glad you like that. I think it's a well.
All right.
It also shows so much of that book was consumed in one episode, Sweet 16.
Right.
It just shows how the amount of material that television demands to do. You're consuming huge amounts of material, written material, compressing it into this 44-minute teleplay, and so much of that book is right there in 44 minutes. And then what do? This is why Michael was expanding and growing these
Throw
stories.
Manly shirtless in an ice bath.
I can't just go by the books. It'll be done in a few weeks. I'll blow through them, and then and that's why he picked. Let's do, yes, it's called Little House on the Prairie, but let's do Banks of Plum Creek for the series, because look at all the people. They're settled in a town, and we can have a doctor and a school and a teacher. And all this stuff can happen. It was all right, so what's your favorite episodes?
Episodes.
We so want to know.
Well, my first favorite is The Harvest of Friends. I really enjoy
opening
that
right
when they're
there.
coming to Walnut Grove and her memory book and all of that. I also find the episode with when they make the bell. I like that episode, how the kids all come together to
Tinker Jones.
make the bell. And then one of my later episodes that I really enjoy is the episode where Nellie returns and Nancy runs away.
Yes, we call that the cotton candy wig episode. Yes.
I really like that story just because of the character development of Nellie herself, as seen from a young girl up to adulthood. I know that's
You're transformed.
not at all factual,
I was allowed to
but-
change. When do they ever do that on TV shows? When you completely get to change your character and become this other.
You and Laura are the dear old friends. Suddenly, we see this lifelong relationship in a very positive way.
I know that's all nice and sweet and yay, but I have to admit, every time I see that episode, I'm like, she faked paralysis. Like, we don't forgive that so easily.
I was young.
So many horrible things she did, and now we're best friends. I don't know. Maybe that's the power of a good Jewish man as her husband to change, but I don't know. I don't know if I would have it in me to forgive her
She
so
understood
well.
as an adult, because she now had kids, and she realized what Mrs. Olson
faked
had
paralysis.
totally messed with my head and made me the crazy chick I was.
But Wendy, thank you for coming on and joining us for this hour, this more than the hour of the Little House 50th anniversary podcast. You've been terrific in making time in your incredibly busy schedule as you prep for the arrival of crowds of fans and members of the Little House cast. It's going to be a very busy weekend. You know, we've been there for the 40th. We were there for the 45th. You all do a wonderful job putting this together.
Who's
and
up for
Pamela,
the 60th?
I'm sorry you're not going to be there, because you would have really.
Oh my God, you'd love it so
I'm
much.
sorry, I'm not going to be there.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
I don't know.
You need to
This
come.
year.
So how are we planning the 60th? Because are we doing 55th, or do you just want to hold for the 60th?
Yeah, let's get through the remainder.
I'm
of
up
the
for
50th.
the. Are you up for the 60th? I'm
Wow.
totally down
Dean,
for the
you'll
60th.
still be a
Let's do
best-selling,
60th.
book-selling
Oh
author
boy.
at the 60th.
Yeah, that's
Won't
good.
his second book come out about that
Well, of
time?
course,
yeah.
of course, yes. Or
If
reserve.
there were a
trilogy,
second
that
book,
would be
it better
enough
come
time.
out a lot before that.
No, that would be the third book. Yes.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. But Wendy, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. You've been great. Hopefully you have a great time in Walnut Grove.
We shall come and exhaust you next week. It'll be great.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. Well, when this episode drops, you will be en route to Walnut Grove and have a fabulous time. I hope people hear this and decide, let's go this weekend. And that's a wrap for us today. I'm sorry we didn't get to listener questions. We will do more listener questions, I promise. And also on Patreon, we're going to be doing a lot of listener questions. So,
Nice.
join on Patreon and you'll get lots of bonus stuff. And you'll be able to support the show so we can do more than 50 episodes for the 50th anniversary podcast. Yes. Anyway, check us out on our socials, Little House 50 Podcast, or our website, littlehouse50podcast.com. And I think it's time for Bob to go get the wig.
Yeah.
Let's fly, everybody. Wendy, will you fly with us? Airplane.
Yeah, you do it.
Way to go, Wendy.